Well, here we are today at the Calzone kitchen, and we're going to be doing calzones. And I don't know how many we're going to make. So, we already did the dough. We're going to get that spread out on the table. We're going to take the ricotta, and we're going to take it out of these containers into this, and we're going to drain the water out. Okay, now we're going to take the ricotta out of here. And we're going to try and drain it, or we are going to drain it. And we have to let this sit in here so the water drains out. Okay, so now we have 10 pounds of ricotta draining, and we're going to let this sit. And we're going to start frying up the meat while this is sitting.
Okay, so the next step is we're going to spread flour on the island so we can separate the individual balls of dough so that they don't stick together while we're putting together all of the stuffing for the calzones. So we pre-made the dough yesterday, kept it in the refrigerator overnight. Now we're gonna put it, we laid it out, now we're gonna put a little flour on it so it doesn't stick and cover them so they stay warm underneath so they're a little bit easier to roll out.
We have 6 pounds of sausage, 3 hot, 3 mild. We're gonna put it in this pan. We're gonna cook it up, break it up, and put it back in here. And then we're going to let it cool so when we mix it. So here we go. And it doesn't make a difference if you do the hot or mild, we're gonna mix it anyway. Okay, I put both 3 pounds of hot, 3 pounds of mild in this pan. It's heating up, and we're gonna cook this up, and we'll show you later what it's going to look like. But it'll be all broken up and easy to work with, and then we'll cool it in this pan.
The goal today is to make 6 traditional calzones with the dough that we have out here, the 6 balls of dough. But we're also going to attempt to make 4 in a pie tin. So what we did was we purchased some pie crust, Pillsbury pie crust, and we're going to open those up so that those also can get to room temperature so they're easier to work with when we're ready to start stuffing.
Today we're going to be using 3 different types of cheeses. The first is Romano, the second is the ricotta, which we're straining right now, and lastly is Tuma cheese, which we're going to grate to go into the cheese mixture. And this is how you grate the Tuma cheese, and it should look like this. Very fine. So this is what 1 pound of Tuma cheese grated should look like after you're done.
So back with the ricotta that we're straining, every now and then it's good to just come, shake it up a bit so you get as much liquid out of there as possible.
Okay, as we are cooking down the meat, the 3 pounds of hot and 3 pounds of mild, we're actually mixing it up prior to it finishing, and it's easier for Carla to mix it, and it comes out a lot better. So as we're cooking this down, I usually cook it between high and medium. So medium high is, and you have to be very patient because you have to break this down and mix it up. So I'm going to start transferring the meat into the pan so we can start cooling it and get all the grease out of it. So now that the meat has been cooked down, we put it in this tray, and now we have to wait for it to cool so we can mix it.
Okay, now we're going to begin to prep the mixture. So we're going to take the ricotta that was drained, put it into our big pan. And begin the process. Now we're gonna put the mixture together, and as you can see, the ricotta, which was fully drained for approximately an hour to get all the liquid out, we have that in our bowl. We have our 6 pounds of sausage, 3 pounds hot, 3 pounds mild. We have our Tuma cheese that's been grated, 1 pound of Tuma. We have our Romano grated cheese, which we're gonna start out with 1 pound, and then we'll use the second for taste, depending. And then we have some red pepper, crushed red pepper, a little salt, and some black pepper. And then lastly, we're gonna put in some eggs. Usually the amount of eggs that you use is equal to the amount of regat that we have in here. So it's 10 pounds of regat, we'll do 10 eggs. Okay, so now we're gonna put in the sausage into our regat mixture. Kind of mix that around a little bit. Now 1 pound of tuna, grated finely, going in. We'll mix that up a little bit. And now the 1 pound of Romano cheese, grated, goes into the mixture. Mix that up a little bit, and then we'll start with some of the seasonings. Eggs go in last. So now a little black pepper. Depends on, you know, your flavor, what you like, what you don't like. So we'll taste it then to see if we think we need more. And then we're just gonna put very little because we have hot sausage in there. So we're gonna put just a little bit of red pepper flakes just to give it a little bit more flavor. And then we'll mix a little bit with all the dry ingredients and the cheese, and then the last that goes in will be the eggs. Okay, so now we're gonna put, the last ingredient is the eggs. Again, 1 egg per pound of regatta. So we're gonna put in 10 eggs and then mix. Okay, so now using my hands with gloves on, we're going to mix the eggs, the cheese, the sausage, the pepper, and a little red pepper, and then taste. So after taste testing, it needed more cheese. So we added another pound of Romano cheese, because cheese makes this dish. We added a little bit more, probably another teaspoon, teaspoon and a half of the black pepper, and just a few more red pepper, crushed red pepper flakes. We didn't want to put a lot because we have hot sausage, and as this cooks, the heat from the sausage and the red pepper will come out, and we don't want to make them too hot. So now that the mixture is complete, we're going to preheat the oven at 375. We may need to go to 400, but right now we're going to preheat at 375. And while that's heating up, we're going to put together what we need to base the top of the calzones before they go in the oven so they don't burn on top. And that consists of eggs, only the yolk. So you'll see we'll separate the white from the yolk. And then we'll add a little water, mix it up, and then that's ready to go.
This is my egg yolk trick. So you put the whole egg in, and then you take the water bottle and you squeeze it a little bit. And then what you do is you suck the yolk up, like so, and then you just squirt it out. And then you have an egg yolk.
Okay, so now we're gonna beat the egg a little bit before we add some water, because we don't want it too thick, we want to thin it out a bit. So now we're gonna mix some water in here. And again, beating it up, don't want it too thick, just enough to baste the top of the calzone. So the calzone's basted right before it goes into the oven. So I'm gonna move the mixture closer to the oven, so as the pies are done, we'll put this on top, and in the oven they go. So before we roll out the dough and start to prepare the pies, we have to get our pans ready to go in the oven. And really all it is some flour, not a lot. Just sprinkle the flour all around so that the pie doesn't stick to the pan. And there you go. Now that all the pans have been prepped and ready to go, we're gonna begin the process of rolling out the dough. All right, so now before we roll out the dough, we're gonna take our workspace and we're gonna put some flour, again, so that the dough does not stick. Okay, so we're gonna start the first pie, and all we're gonna do is spread out the dough using the rolling pin, get it not too thin, but not too thick. And then once that's laid out, then we can start filling the dough with the stuffing. Okay, so the dough, the first pie dough, has now been rolled out and we're ready to start stuffing. So we're gonna just make sure we put enough in, more towards the center to the end, so that we have enough dough to flop over. Okay, so now we have the mixture in. We're going to now flip the top of the dough over so that it comes to the bottom. Even out the pie. Okay, and then cut the excess dough. Not too much, because we have to make sure we're sealing the ends. So we're gonna cut the excess dough around. Okay, so now we seal. We go completely around the pie, just twisting the dough to seal the top from the bottom. And then the final process to seal it is you take your fork, you go around the ends, you make sure the dough is completely sealed, and then you just puncture holes on the top to make sure that the dough doesn't rise while it's in the oven and create a big space between the pie filling and the dough. Now it's ready to go. So now the pie is in the pan. We're gonna baste the top and all around the sides. This will also not only seal it, but it'll make it a golden brown as it's cooking in the oven. So we've now basted the pie and it's ready to go into the oven. Right now we have the oven at 375. It normally cooks from somewhere between 40 to 45 minutes. So now we repeat the process for the remaining amount of dough that we have. Okay, now it's been 40 minutes since we put the first pie in the oven, right here, and it's good and ready to come out. It's golden brown. Now we'll just put it up on top of the stove, have it cool before we flip it out of the pan. Once the calzones are out of the oven, we let them cool in the pans for a period of time so that they're cool to the touch. And then we flip so that the bottom then cools. Once the bottom is cooled, we'll flip it back. And there you go. Okay, so now we've finished the traditional pies that were made with the dough that we put together. Now we're going to do them in a pie tin with pie crust. And basically we just flour the bottom of the pan, and then we use the Pillsbury pie crust dough. First layer goes down, we get it in the pan evenly. So the first layer of the crust is down, and we're going to begin to fill using the same filling that we used on the traditional calzones into the pie tin. So now we level out the stuffing before we put the top layer of the pie crust and seal. The tin has been filled, the bottom layer is on, and now we're going to put the top layer of the pie crust above and seal. Okay, so now we have the pie put together, and we're going to seal the lower piece with the upper piece by just twisting all the way around. And the final step is to take the fork and seal all the way around the tin. The pie crust has all been put together, sealed along the sides. We're going to puncture holes in the middle and baste. Now we begin basting, making sure it's covered completely on top and all around the edges. So here is the finished calzone made with the pie crust. Again, we put it in the oven at 375 for approximately 40 minutes. But you need to be very careful because this crust is more delicate than the bread crust. Therefore, we gotta watch the ends to make sure that they don't burn. But this is what it should look like. Now comes the fun part. We get to eat them. There it is. Enjoy.